The last time you ruminated about something, you pondered a problem, you thought about why your mood was the way it was, or maybe something else was occupying your mind. So you spent a lot of time thinking about it. My question to you is, was that thinking helpful? Did it bring you somewhere you wanted to be? Did it help you achieve the goal when you started ruminating in the first place? When I ask my clients this question, some of them say, no, it's absolutely not helpful. I just cannot stop doing it. While other clients will say, I tend to believe that it is when I am in the situation and this thought that I don't like comes up. Yes, in that situation, in that state, I do believe it's helpful. Welcome back to Metacognitive Therapy Central. My mission is to help you become more psychologically resilient by developing a healthier and more relaxed relationship with your thoughts. This is based on metacognitive therapy. I'm a certified metacognitive therapist, and all I do is to study metacognitive therapy, talk about metacognitive therapy, and most importantly, teach my clients metacognitive therapy so that they can learn how to reduce their overthinking and overcome long-term problems with anxiety, depression, stress, lack of concentration, and even procrastination and unproductivity. Today we're going to talk about rumination. A lot of people tend to think that rumination is something that maybe is something we have control over, but usually something that just happens to us. Or maybe it happens when we feel particularly bad, or when we suffer from depression, or when we have a problem. In this video, I would like to give you some more information about rumination, and most importantly, teach you how rumination is completely under your control. Why don't I enjoy work anymore? Is it me, or is it my workplace that's the problem? Why is my mood so low? Why do I constantly feel tired? I don't have motivation for anything. What does this mean? Have you ever asked yourself these type of why questions? Maybe not these exact questions, but questions that start with a why, or you try to understand the meaning of something. So you think about it. Try to go over something that happened maybe. You think about it, and then you ask yourself, why? Rumination usually is triggered by a why question. Why did she say that? Why are they not helpful toward me? Why does my partner not understand me? Why do I constantly feel so low? Why do I always mess up? If you have a habit of asking yourself these type of questions, or try to analyze situations and thoughts and events in order to understand the meaning of them, but you tend to get stuck and your mood kind of gets worse, then probably you're ruminating. So rumination is when you go over the same thoughts again and again, replay the same events in your mind without really getting anywhere. Now, why do we start ruminating? So everyone ruminates from time to time. It's more common than you think. But the question is, why do we do it? The thing is, most people believe that it's some sort of way to problem solve. If I dwell on this thought, if I dwell on why my motivation is so low, then I can better understand myself, and then I can come up with a solution that works. Or if I ruminate about things, that makes me a very deep and intelligent person. So rumination is a positive thing. Or if I go over my mistakes and think about all the ways I have messed up, that will help me avoid making the same mistakes in the future. So typically we start ruminating because we believe somehow that there's some value to it, that it is helpful. But what's interesting is, at least for the clients that I see, is that they also tend to believe that rumination is something they cannot stop. So on one hand, people tend to believe that rumination is helpful. It makes them smarter. It helps them solve problems. It helps them understand things. But on the other hand, rumination is also something that's just happening to them and that they have no control over. And if someone suffers from depression, it's very common to hold both of these ideas about rumination. It's helpful, also it's uncontrolled. Some people, when they start ruminating, can sometimes get to a good solution which they can implement and then move on with life. Some people can find solutions through rumination. I haven't heard of many of them, but that exists. Now, few people can ruminate and then find solutions, implement those solutions, and then move on with life. But rarely that is the case. Usually when people ruminate, they tend to feel worse. Their mood worsens. Their self-esteem takes a hit. They have difficulty concentrating on other things in their lives. They get irritable and they get so incredibly tired. This is what my clients tell me. Rumination, when it's done over and over and over, rarely gets them to any solutions. They tend to feel depressed, they tend to feel tired, they tend to feel overwhelmed. In fact, research shows that rumination is not a good way to solve problems. In a study, students were asked to ruminate about some of their problems, and then, while they were ruminating, write down solutions to these problems. And the students would, for example, write, spend less money if their problem was financial, or study more if they felt behind on schoolwork. What's interesting, however, was that none of these people implemented the solutions that they had written down. So rumination may help you generate some ideas or some solutions to your problems, but you're less likely to be motivated and get up and implement them. But instead of rumination, a better way of dealing with this problem would be, what is one thing I can implement today that can help me overcome this problem? I kind of explain the idea of controlling rumination this way to my clients. I tell them, well, there are two options. Either it's true, you cannot stop ruminating, especially when you're feeling very upset or very disturbed, then you cannot stop ruminating. Or maybe you haven't implemented the most helpful strategies to help you realize that you can stop. So either it's true, you have no control, or you can always control rumination, you just need to use the right strategies. So let's look at how you can start reducing rumination and realize how much control you have over this thinking process. So here are 3 simple steps to control rumination, and you can start today. The first step is to notice when it is that you're ruminating. I ask my clients to sometimes check in and ask themselves, what is it that I am doing right now in my mind? And that is especially if they tend to feel down suddenly, or they tend to feel tired or drained. That would be a good cue to ask yourself, what am I doing in my mind right now? So that's the first step. The second step is to remind yourself that you can choose to stop rumination. Kind of like scratching a wound. You can choose to scratch, but you can also choose to stop. So remind yourself, I can stop. And then the third step is to stop the conversation you have with yourself, which essentially is what rumination is. Stop talking back to the thoughts that popped up and wanted to grab your attention. So again, the first step is to notice when it is that you're ruminating. A good thing is just to ask yourself once in a while, what am I doing in my head right now? And then remind yourself that you can stop. And then stop. Just stop having this conversation with yourself. Let the thoughts be in the background and stop talking back to them. If you repeat this, you will gain more and more experience that you can stop rumination, even when the thoughts are really tempting or when the situation is upsetting, for example. So rumination is not something that you're stuck with. It is a strategy, and it's a learned strategy. And like any other habits or strategies, we can unlearn things and learn new things. So this is your chance to unlearn the habit of rumination because you have control over this. This approach is based on MCT, Metacognitive Therapy. If you're interested in learning more, I have several videos on this channel. Go check them out and learn more about MCT. Thanks for watching.